Hello and welcome to the show with me, Gillian Gottsell. Today my guest is Bridget Greenwood, who is the founder of The Bigger Pie and based in London. Welcome to the show, Bridget.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm going to start off by reading out a piece. Well, I've taken a piece from your LinkedIn. I love it. You pivoted your career from an independent financial advisor to a pioneer in financial services social media. Woo, go you. And what I love about that is two of the words in particular, pivoting. Pivoting is a great thing to do. It's a wonderful talent. And pioneer, so the two P's. And then pie. Pivoting, pioneer, and pie. That's where it came from.
There we go. I didn't realize it, but there we go.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So tell me a little about your financial background. So I went through your LinkedIn. There's a lot of very serious roles there. So you're a very smart lady in finance.
So I was an independent financial advisor, which I always say is BC, before child.
Right.
And I used to adore that. So I live in the countryside, and it means that there's a lot of travel, which before I became a parent wasn't a problem for me. And I would go out and see clients all day long. It was wonderful. You get to talk to them, meet strangers, and ask them all about their lives and what they want to achieve, and then put together a financial plan to help them to deliver on that. And the idea was to go back to work after I had my son. But when I was on maternity leave, the powers that be at the firm decided that they only wanted high earners in the firm. So you had to write £250,000, otherwise they would take 75% of the earnings. I was the only female advisor, and I was not in the room when the decision was made, so I couldn't turn around and say, but what about me? I'm looking to come back part-time on maternity leave. So I had to. I couldn't go back to that. And then I had a look at whether I could go into being a financial advisor, potentially with another firm, because you're self-employed, you find your own clients, you manage your own diaries. But it's very expensive to be registered with the FCA, etc. So I didn't really see, for a variety of reasons, why I could go back to that. Hence the ability or the need to pivot. And then fast forward a few years, when I was ready to come back into the workforce, then I wanted to understand how I could use the computer in front of me to be able to attract people to me, so I didn't always have to go out and about to see people. As I say, you live in the countryside, so it's not quite having the same opportunities when you're in the city.
I understand. I'm your sister in that regard. I live 100 kilometres south of Dublin. That doesn't sound a long way, but half it is on country roads, so you're doing
Exactly. So I, not particularly technical, so I wasn't able to build websites. I mean, now we have the advancements and the software that makes it quite easy for even someone like me to put a website together. But what I could do is I could build relationships, and I could attract people to me by leveraging the social media platforms. So we're talking around, nearly 10 years ago, actually, 2011. And it's so funny when you see how things had progressed so quickly. So 2012, I wanted to do financial social media. So it was helping businesses within the financial services industry to be able to leverage social media in a positive way. But back then, most of the financial companies were very reticent to do so. Because one, there was a regulatory hurdle that they had to get past that other businesses didn't.
And advertising, is it, or they...
Well, you've got the FCA, so it says what sort of promotions can you do and what's allowed, what isn't allowed. And then if you've got to do warnings to do on Twitter, of course, you've only got 140 characters. So you're limited by what might need to be done and how you can do it. But then that's more about selling. And I think that when you're leveraging social media, particularly in the earlier days, it was about organic reach. We didn't have Instagram then, the FB ads weren't available then. So it was literally about creating content and engaging with your audience in a way that was meaningful to them. But a lot of the large companies are like, well, our clients aren't on social media. We don't allow anyone access to it anyway. It's blocked from their work phones and from their work computers. And then RBS had a computer glitch, shall we say. So for 2 or 3 days, it might have run on for 4 days, no one could get paid. So RBS and NatWest, of course, all the same part. So people weren't getting paid, mortgages weren't going through. it all shut down. So it was a huge issue, and the communications coming out of RBS at the time was really limited. And I remember watching it in live action, live motion, as it were. That at NatWest, as the Twitter handle, was being bombarded, of course, by people going, "I want to know what's going on, what's going on." But at NatWest was Natalie Weston. It wasn't even the bank didn't even own their own social media names.
Oh, wow.
And so this poor primary school teacher was getting all of the flack coming in from the issues that were going on with the bank. And I used to chair at the Financial Services Discussion Club. And I remember going back, it was each month, I remember going back after that incident, and all the banks were going like, "Okay, can you talk to us about how we do this and what we do? Because there, by the grace of God, that could have been us, that we understand now that we do need to have these communications." But that's what it was like. It was going in and having to justify or having to explain how this technology is actually going to be used by everyone and needs to form part of our daily lives. And if it's going to be part of the daily lives of your clients, then it should be part of the daily lives of your business. So it's quite interesting. So it was good to be at the beginning of that, and it's changed so much now.
Oh, it's mad, isn't it? It used to be a force for good, and now it's like people are leaving. There's new social sites coming up, but then I suppose they've always kind of, Bebo, MySpace, they're all gone. Friends reunited. Oh, so many divorces. They've gone through their scroll. I think it's
yeah, and we really have a problem. I don't know if you've watched The Great Hack on Netflix.
No.
Fascinating about Cambridge Analytica, and basically how 6 different elections have been manipulated through the use of data, yes, and social media. And then we've had our recent elections. It was great to see Twitter was like, well, we're not going to allow political ads on our platform, as I understand it. Whereas Facebook were like, oh no, go at it. I don't care if they're true or they're false or what have you. And the interesting thing I found as well from Cambridge Analytica, The Great Hack, was talking about, before with the FCA and regulation and adverts, or as it were, your Facebook feed and your Instagram feed is different to mine. And so the ads that come up are not ads that anyone else can see. So it's not like you go onto a website and you can see, everyone else gets to see the same thing. So it's really difficult to regulate. It's really easy to manipulate, and I'm not comfortable with the way that it's born out.
When did you financial social media side of things, so you're understanding how people communicate, shall we say?
Yes.
And then when did you get into Bitcoin? When did that hit?
So that was in the summer of, it was beginning of end of 2016, beginning of 2017. People in my spheres of conversation online kept talking about Bitcoin. So I started to understand what it was. And then to do that, I had to understand what problem it was trying to solve. And although I was a financial advisor and had been working in the financial services sector, the concept of how our fiat currency is set up, and also how the Federal Reserve was set up in the US. And definitely aware, of course, of the 2008 financial crisis. Then I was fascinated about what Bitcoin was looking to do. What problems is it trying to solve? How far has it got to solving that? What else needs to happen? So that was fascinating, but I still found it too difficult to buy it. Going back to that, I'm not that technical.
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine said, well, Bridget, I can help you with that. And I said, thank you very much. So I was able to send him some fiat currency and then download a wallet and get my Bitcoin in return. So that was great. And he said, actually, I want to start doing this as a business. And I thought, wonderful. With financial social media, we've already discussed, the way that social media has changed so much, and I haven't been always, I'm not comfortable with it. I also want to be part of a team. So financial social media was me by myself. And I really miss the idea of having colleagues and working with other people. So I was like, yes, let's do that. Of course, for anyone who was around in 2017, we know that Bitcoin went up to almost 20,000. dollars. So everyone was talking about Bitcoin, and it was on everyone's lips, and everyone was interested in purchasing it. So that all looked great. So I said in January, right, let's do this full time. And of course, the markets changed rapidly. But it was a really fascinating time. It was from this still going. Going from strength to strength, which is great, and it's helping institutional money to be able to get from fiat to crypto and crypto to fiat, because again, there are huge amounts of regulations that you need to go through, particularly for institutional investors and institutional money. And then but I thought was really interesting for me to see when you speak to a traditional financial company, they'll be like, I'm not really interested in Bitcoin. My clients aren't interested in Bitcoin. We don't really need to know anything about it. There's a regulatory risk and there's a reputational risk. And I thought, I'm sure I've heard this story before with something else, but that's what happens when technology comes rolling in. It doesn't really matter what you think so much, does it? If it gets adopted, then we have to adapt.
Yes.
So that was brilliant. And whilst I was doing that, we realised that there just weren't enough women in the space. And the reports and the surveys that we'd been shown.
Your first story, when you said that you were the only woman there.
Oh, yes, as financial advisor.
Yeah, and as a result, they didn't take into account any parents who wanted to work part-time, particularly women.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't only parents who wanted to work part-time, because they were all parents. Quite a lot of them had young children. I know, but I always use parent as well, rather than a mum or dad, because it has biases and stories attached to the labels. But yeah, so they were all like, oh no, one can have a young family and carry on doing this. Well, no. And by that time I was a single parent as well, because the marriage didn't last very long. Very
tough. Okay, so you also, and we've spoken about this at length, but there aren't enough women in the space at all.
No. So all the reports that were coming out of 2017, 2018 were showing that it's less than 10% of women, and that's investing in cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin. So if you've ever, I actually haven't asked you about this, but if you've ever played around with going onto the exchanges and then choosing to purchase other altcoins, I think anyone who's interested in, particularly on the Bitcoin side of things, which is, for me, I call it the grandfather blockchain, which we've obviously been able to take that technology and use it to help solve different problems. Knowing about it by reading it, and then knowing about it by doing it, buying it, holding it, I think are two very, very different experiences. And I would encourage everyone to say, actually, I want to be able to go and buy some Bitcoin. If it's not your keys, it's not your Bitcoin. So what does that mean? Why do you have to be responsible for it? What does it feel like when you're downloading an app and a wallet and you're thinking, goodness me, I hope this is the right wallet, because there's no Bitcoin helpline.
No, it is. I agree. I mean, I've earned. I haven't actually bought. Have I bought? No, I've earned all my currencies that I have. Some of them are useless. Some of them might come good, and I've got a very small amount of Bitcoin. But I've earned it. So and then recently I transferred some over to a friend for another reason. And we're there together. I said, help me do this.
Yes.
It's scary. You're pushing buttons. You're going, oh, I'm right there beside him. We're going, yeah, that's right. That's.
Yeah, exactly. And you will get targeted. Everyone, if there's money and value to be had, then people will find a way to exploit those who are, to fish and to hack. So you've also got that you want to be aware of. So there are people who will put fake accounts out, who will, if you download some malware and thinking it's a wallet, then so for me, it was having a community of people that I could speak to say, I want to learn this. Will you hold my hand, metaphorically, as I go through this? Is this a wallet that you've used, and does this look right with you? And let me transfer just a very small amount so I can test it, and I know I've got the right address. And can you send them to me? And then it's quite interesting, because you can see it's like, how many verifications need to be done before the transaction is actually approved, and watching that happen. So yeah, that was.
Tell me then about this community that you were creating to help foster
So that was just an informal community that I had, both with the guys at BCB Group, and it wasn't just guys. We had there are other women involved as well, and then some friends that I have who are actually based on the other side of the world. So that was the other interesting thing that I liked about what I was learning about Bitcoin as well, is the problems that it's looking to solve. Was if you're in a first world country and the financial system is pretty much working for you and you're easily banked, although we don't realize that we're asking for permission every time we make a transaction, it's because it says yes to us all the time. But when your government isn't stable, when you don't have that luxury, it's incredibly valuable that you have a solution to that. So we watched as Zimbabwe, the premium price on Bitcoin in Zimbabwe was 30 to 50%. Watching what's been happening in Venezuela as well. It's good to have, for me. You and I have had conversations before about one of the reasons why we need more women in the space is because it's too easy to have group thinking and to have biases. And if most of my friends, which they are all first world friends, then I just think that everything is like that, and it's really not the case. So the more people that we can have involved in our understanding of what's happening around the globe, particularly if we're dealing with technology that can then go out and serve those people, the better for me.
So tell me about the bigger pie then.
So yes, so we saw that there weren't enough women, and that was highlighted through BCB Group. I then celebrated some of the women who were pioneers and wrote an article that was 21 women to watch. And then I shared it out, and it was brilliant because all of a sudden the attention it got, the hits, the readers that it got, and then the reshares that it got across on LinkedIn, particularly of different people's profiles, and the engagement it got. It was great to see that clearly there's a massive appetite to be able to see more female leaders in the space. And it was able to allow me to find more of these amazing women, but it wasn't the right platform to be able to focus all of that on BCB Group, because that's not they're focusing on the main business. So then I thought, what am I going to do after I'd left BCB? And I kept thinking of the different things that I could do, but I kept coming back to actually no, what I want to be able to do is I want to support women in blockchain. If this technology can deliver on the promise that it currently it's at that stage, it's so nascent, the idea of what it's supposed to be able to deliver and the execution, we haven't reached that milestone yet, which for me is really exciting, because it means that the companies that are going to use this technology to employ these solutions across the globe haven't been built yet. So what I want to be able to do with the bigger pie is turn around and say, okay, let's make sure that we can build these companies right at the start. So they do have inclusion, they do have diversity, and that includes gender diversity. So at the moment, in terms of diversity, and I understand that diversity is more than just male or female, but because the female representation is so small, that's the biggest needle that I'm looking to change with the bigger pie. So it's supporting the women who are currently already in the space and those leaders. It's raising their visibility. It's being able to more easily connect them to each other, to be supportive. It's about making sure that they can get funded. So it doesn't matter what sector you're in, the stats on female founders and the amount of investment they get is stunningly low.
Although there are increasingly, are there not groups that are only going to invest in female-led?
You have to have at least one female founder. So
there's a move, because there's also a recognition that was shared in the group that I think it was either McKinsey, Nordea, or Credit Suisse, or all three did reports where when you have women in decision-making roles, the profitability of that company goes through the roof.
It does, yeah. So I think it's 25% if it's women. The GDPR, I always call it the GDPR. The GDP globally would go up by another 25% if we had parity in the male and the female roles.
So it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
exactly. And so, yes, there are more steps towards making sure that female founders can get investment, but it's still very sad. So in the US, it went up last year, but unfortunately, the report I saw in the UK, it actually went down the amount of funding that female founders were getting. Sorry. So a lot of work to be done. Yeah, so I thought, okay, and I've been to events, and the wonderful work that Sharon Henley is doing and Dr. Jane Thompson are doing with London FinTech Week, because they have a Women in Blockchain that they kick off the London FinTech Week, and the same with London Blockchain Week. And so there's gathering for women come to meet other women, learn about blockchain, understand what it is, ask those questions that we wish we had someone that we could ask questions to. And it was talking about, what do you want support? Yes, what does it look like? So all the things that I had been thinking about, this is what women were saying they wanted to. So we did a soft launch in September, and we're building the community up, which I'm grateful to have you in, Gillian. Thank you for your participation in that. And then I was really like, oh, what's the best way to serve our community? So we're now in January 2020, and I have an awful lot of things that I'm looking.
Sorry.
It's the 20s. So, yes, so I have an awful lot of different ways in which I'm looking to support the women that we have and to attract more women into the space.
And one of the things we're going to do is on January the 7th, I think, isn't it? The 7th or the 9th?
I believe we said the 7th.
7th, okay. We're going to be launching a new 21 club on Blockleaders.
Yes.
You're doing it's going to be a quarterly thing. You're going to do the first one. Yes, the 7th after here. You're going to do the first one, the first list. And then we're going to pick out different women and highlight them in Blockleaders over the quarter. And then come up with another 21 women.
Yes. So anyone who's watching this, if you are a female leader in the space, crypto or in blockchain, please nominate yourself. Or if you know of someone who you admire, who should be recognized for the work that they're doing, please let us know. I'm sure you'll attach with this contact details, but yes.
Because it's so important, because I know that I've worked in fintech for like 30 years or whatever, and it is male dominated, we know that. Blockchain even more so, I think. And it is disconcerting sometimes going into a room or into an environment where it's all men. And kind of going, I'm the only woman standing out. And it's not, you just need life. I go into my shop, I go drive in my car, there's half men, half women. You know, life should be, in fact, there's more women than men on the planet, I think, isn't there? There's like 50.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why I'm single still, obviously.
You look there. Yes. So yeah, it's a no-brainer commercially. It's a no-brainer in every sense of the word. So what can we learn from what other industries are doing and being successful from? Yeah. What can we learn to see why we're not being successful? So there's reports out that show that women want accountability from their firms, that their gender won't impede on their career progression, which I've had more than once knowingly throughout my career.
I was pregnant once, and my position was sidelined. It went legal in the end, but it was just I was pregnant. I was given projects. I'm going, I don't think so. Brain is still working.
Yes, very strange. And although there are laws to protect, there are ways. The stories that I've heard from women
the law did protect me in the end, and I was vindicated. It meant that I had to leave this company, you know, and go find work elsewhere. And you know, it wasn't my intention to leave the company.
No, but if you end up going through something like that, then is that really a place where you feel?
Well, no, there was no way I was going back afterwards. But
exactly,
before it all started, I very, very much enjoyed working for the company. It was a very good company. Just one particular manager got it wrong, and then HR upheld him, and then he was overturned in the end afterwards. But yes, there is gender discrimination the whole time.
Yeah, but what's really interesting, you speak to a company like CMS. They're a law firm, and as I understand it, they have 6 months parental leave, and the fathers are taking that parental leave. And because that's one thing. Is one thing having it, but if people aren't taking it, then it's not going to make the changes and the impact we want. And so I was speaking to one of the senior women in the team there, and she said the biggest difference is if you're in a meeting with someone who's taken a father who's taken the 6 months parental leave, they'll say to you, "Oh, should we do a meeting on Monday?" And they'll say, "I can't do Monday because I have to go and pick up the kids." And they're like, "Not a problem. I can't do that on Wednesday either." And so this idea of being able to manage your life around the fact that you do have children and not pretend, she said it was the biggest impact for her that she found.
Isn't that interesting? You're right, because you normally disguise the fact you got to leave early, because the creche will put the children out on the side of the road if you're not there.
So yes. And I think as well, what's interesting is for me as millennials, or the technology allows for us not to have to be in the office 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That this idea of having flexibility, which is, so women wanted accountability from their company that gender wouldn't impede them. They wanted balance in their work life and outside of work life, and that does mean you have to be rigidly 9 to 5, or as long as I deliver what I'm supposed to deliver, doesn't matter the hours that I do it in. They wanted to make sure that they were able to develop both professionally and with soft skills as well, and ultimately they want to be empowered. And unfortunately, women are leaving technology after 10 years because they're just not finding those things.
Wow.
And those are the reports that have been done. But it's interesting because I'll go to events in London. I'll go to blockchain events. I'll go to blockchain events or fintech events. And invariably, I'll speak to, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 people, 5 or 10 women. And 1 or 2 of them has left their job before they've got another job because they weren't getting the right balance. So if we're going to build businesses that are not only going to attract women but they're going to retain women, then let's build and recognise these work practices in place at the time.
Because the other flip side is that if it's more attractive for women as a parent, it'll be more attractive to men as a parent.
Exactly.
And also as people not as parents, because the flexibility is, if you're a nurse in a hospital, you have to be there, right? But if you have jobs that allow flexibility, everybody can say, well, actually, I need time off because I'm doing my Frisbee championship, whatever it is.
It doesn't always have to be around children, of course.
It could be your hobby, it could be whatever it is, and it does make a difference.
Yeah.
So, and it benefits the company. So,
yeah.
Like, what's not to like? It's all these. I was actually speaking with, I'm going to say it properly now, Andreas
Antonopoulos.
Sorry,
I love him.
You're a big fan of his, and I'm a big fan of his. And we were talking about, he was also talking about gender. I brought it up, but he was saying making it a safe space.
Yes, 100%.
I think he mentioned that when he goes to conferences, he makes sure that there's rules of conduct that apply to him and to the people at the conference, so that you're protecting, gender in particular, but once you protect gender, you're protecting everybody. Once you have that rationalization that people who are different because of their gender, people who are different because of their sexual orientation, whatever it is, their skin color, you're protecting diversity. But that was the safe place he spoke about. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, but I think safe spaces are so important for everyone. Yes, we're talking particularly about gender, but a safe space for everyone and anyone is really important, because you can't flourish. I'm listening to, I travel in the car a lot, so I'm in love with Audible and being able to actually drive and learn as I go along. And they're just all the research that I've been looking at says that and it doesn't matter which gender you are, if you've been primed to feel good about yourself before you do a task, whether that is going for, that's a work task, or going for an interview, or just being cognitive and creative, or whatever it is you're doing, if you feel confident, it's very difficult to feel confident if you don't feel safe, right? Then your ability to perform is always significantly better than if you have been primed to feel less confident for whatever reasons. So it just makes sense for everyone to be able to come from a place of love, come from a place of safety, and and to be able to, when they're at work, be focused on work and not trying to, juggle multiple things at the same time, because they're worried about whether or not this meeting is going to finish on time so they can get to where they need to be for something else outside of their work. So it's really important. I think the other thing that we should really recognize as well is, particularly if you've been to any of the train stations in London at rush hour, when there's been a delay on the train, just look at all those people who are commuting, and they're all trying to commute at the same time. And if we don't have to all be rushing in and rushing back mostly at the same time, or I don't have to go into the office every day, the wellness of the individuals is going to increase, and it's going to reduce our carbon footprint as well. So
yeah. I mean, it's actually terrible already that in this modern world, so many people can't do those flexible hours or work from home. It should be like I mean, obviously there's a social aspect to going into an office, and that's quite nice too as well. But people should. It's actually almost criminal that companies have not set themselves up to release their employees back to their homes again.
So when you've got a culture that's already in place, and I think it was the first employee at Yahoo who was sharing his experiences. He said once the company gets to 100, very, very difficult to change. 100 employees, it's very difficult to change the culture of that company. So you want to make sure that you build with the right culture at the beginning, so inclusiveness, flexibility, to be able to attract the best talent. That's the whole point, right? Especially when if you're in blockchain and crypto, you're going to be new. It might be a new arm of an existing company, but either way, this is new market territory. This is new technologies. So we're starting from zero. So we want to be able to attract the best talents.
And why not build a new structure from the start?
Exactly. So I think it's really exciting, the opportunities that we have in front of us. And going back to what you were saying about Andreas and talking about events and having safe places for events and visibility, I definitely want to see more speakers, more panelists at events that represent more of what the world looks like. And so obviously to be able to raise the visibility of the female leaders who are out there, because they're doing amazing things. The capability and the content that they deliver. And when I've been to events that Helen Disney, for example, runs, I'm talking to someone like On Yavin, for example. So he talks a lot about events. He goes to a lot of events. And he recently, last year, I believe it was, went to one of Helen's events. It was the first one. He was like, wow, I'm blown away that the quality of the panels and the speakers that Helen gets together, and you're listening and they're sharing knowledge that that they're dealing in every day. It's really useful. It's not theoretical. It's not what if. It's not what the Bitcoin price might be. It's not anybody's ego. It's about, here's the technology. Here's where it's being applied. Here are the challenges that we're currently facing. Here are the different ways that we think that we might be able to resolve that. And we don't have the answers to everything, but here's what we do know. Really, really valuable stuff. So I want to see more of that. And so I want to be able to make sure that I work with event organizers to say, okay, what subject matters are you looking for? Because I'll help you go and find a number of speakers who will be able to cover those subject matters. So if you're a female, or of a woman who can share her knowledge as a speaker, as a panelist, then again, please let us know so we can get together this list. And if you're an event organizer, then come and tell me what it is you're looking for, and we can go out and find those speakers.
So if people want to find you, apart from the 7th of January in Blockleaders,
yes.
from that, and this is 2020, where can they find you, Bridget?
So thebiggerpie.io.
Great name, The Bigger Pie. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Yes, the more people involved, guess what? There's more to go around for everyone. Thebiggerpie.io. So we're going to be launching, I said, at the moment we've got the trial community, as I said, called it, and that's great. We've allowed that community grow organically. People have come in. The amount of feedback, positive feedback I've had from people within that group saying it's really helpful, it's really useful. Thanks for the support you've given me. I've been blown away by, and to want to be able to ramp that up. So I'm going to put it onto a new platform. So we'll always have a place where there's conversations just for women, and you can have that safe space in there. Then also we'll be able to have other groups. So we'll have a group. Women can't just talk to women and preach to the choir. We want to go out there and we want to work with everyone in the industry. And there are plenty of businesses out there who are dying to find female talent. And so I need to understand why they can't find it. Is it because the culture of their business and what they're doing? Is it largely, and I'm sure, a nascent technology? They just can't find enough of the people that they're looking for. Is it perhaps because they need to find more flexible practices? And let's understand what that is, and then start to be able to help these companies to grow in the way that they want to. So that's going to be an opportunity to bring those people in, and make sure that we have the right tone of voice in the conversations, because it's about learning and supporting. We don't always have to agree on how we solve a problem, but I think we can always agree that we can be kind to each other whilst we're focusing on the problem.
Well, that's a very nice thought, to be kind. That's kind of people ask me for advice. I say, be kind to yourself and be kind to people. And if you do that, it just makes your life a whole lot better.
It does. And if you just recognize that, people are either operating from fear or from love. So when you see someone misbehaving, as it were, however you might want to describe that misbehaving, it could just be that they're not listening, or they're being potentially more aggressive than you think the situation might require, then they're coming from fear. So we just have to be compassionate about that, and then just talk about what the issues are, and if they're open to that dialogue and that opens that discussion, and have those. That's what I'm looking to do. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just clock watching here now. So we're going to finish off with, again, thebiggerpie.io is how people reach you. And on LinkedIn as well, is that another good place to find you?
Yes, absolutely. So if you find me under just Bridget Greenwood, I think I managed to get the URL with my name on there, so that's great. Yeah. And on Twitter, it's at Bridget TBP.
Bridget is BRIDGET.
It is, yes.
For those of you not with Irish heritage.
Can I also just say that one of the other things that I'm looking to do in 2020 to raise visibility is to gather a collection of all of the businesses that are out there that are looking to solve a problem around the globe. Happens to use blockchain as part of that solution, and happens to be led by women.
Okay.
So I want to get a collection of those stories, because I think one of the reasons I'm mostly interested in blockchain is not because I'm geeked out by the technology, but the problems that are looking to be solved that are using this technology, I really want to see succeed, and I'm really fascinated by that. So I think that's one of the ways that we can, again, raise the visibility, have it with a credible publishing house, so that we can raise the credibility as well as the visibility, and then be able to attract more women into the space.
Brilliant. Well, all I can say to finish on is happy 2020.
Yes, happy New Year. I can't wait to work together and see what we can achieve.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Danny.
That's Bridget Greenwood, who is the founder of The Bigger Pie. That's all for today. Thank you so much, folks. Bye.